The year was 9817 AD. Earth was gone, not destroyed, not lost, just left behind. No one alive had ever seen it. To most, Earth was just a myth now, a blue marble in some forgotten archive, the birthplace of monsters, dreamers, gods in flesh. Humanity had long outgrown its cradle, and like all things once loved, it had been buried beneath stardust and time. We had spread, not like explorers, like fire, from the asteroid cities of the belt to the molten plains of Virak 5 to frozen moons that never saw sunlight. We adapted. We survived. We thrived. We weren't the first to reach the stars, not even close, but we're the only ones who refused to stop. Other species rose slowly, gracefully, with purpose, caution, tradition. Humans, we just ran headfirst into the void, daring it to break us. They called us reckless, primitive, loud, emotional, but behind their polished languages and ancient wisdoms, they were afraid. Because humanity did what no other race dared to do. We failed forward. We built things that fell apart, then rebuilt them stronger. We lost wars and came back twice as angry. We colonized death worlds that devoured our first settlers, and by the third wave, we called them home. The galaxy watched and whispered. How did they survive the machine rebellion of Sector 9? How did they reverse engineer the quantum tears after the Ibex collapse? How did they survive the silence of Corridon? Again and again we walked through fire and came out smiling. And leading us now was a woman born of war and ice. General Ayla Saren. She wasn't bred in a gene vault like the Orovans. She wasn't immortal like the Sylvani emissaries. She was human, scarred, stubborn, brilliant, born on Thalor Prime, a planet where storms could strip flesh from bone. Raised in the siege of Tentaros, where food was a rationed memory and warmth was a myth, she didn't rise through power. She clawed her way through hell. By 23, she had outmaneuvered the Mokari fleets in the Void Wars. By 30, she was rewriting the entire doctrine of the Terran Union Navy. By 40, they called her Iron Veil, the War Whisperer, the one the aliens feared would arrive. And now, she stood at the helm of the expansion fleet, staring into the galactic core. A place no human had ever reached, a place no one dared to reach, because it belonged to the Zarn. The Zarn Dominion was legend, crystalline giants of living energy, older than memory itself. They spoke in frequencies no ear could hear, thought in patterns that melted AI minds. Their empire was eternal, their wrath unthinkable. They hadn't fought a war in 10,000 years, because no one was stupid enough to challenge them. Until now. Because humans weren't cautious. We were curious. We didn't ask for permission. We expanded. 10 new colonies were already forming within Zarn-claimed territory. Terraformers were singing to dead soil. Engineers were building domes on airless rocks. Children were laughing in synthetic parks beneath alien suns. To the Zarn, this was an infection. To us, it was Tuesday, and Ayla knew what was coming. She stood alone in the command chamber of the TSV Valiant, the flagship of the fleet. The lights dimmed. The stars beyond the glass burned white against black. One hand rested on the railing. The other clutched a data slate. She just received the transmission, the warning. Cease expansion, return to the rim, or be extinguished. It wasn't a negotiation. It was a declaration. Behind her, the admirals waited in silence, faces tense, minds racing. Every one of them had read the histories. They knew what the Zarn could do, what they had done to others. Ayla said nothing for a long time. Then she smiled. It was small, cold, a thing with no warmth at all, and then she whispered it. One word. Try. The word echoed, first across the bridge, then across the fleet, and finally into the stars. That night, across 10,000 Terran worlds, children looked up at the sky and saw it shift, brighter, bolder, as if the universe itself had inhaled. Something was coming, but it would learn like everything before it. Humanity doesn't retreat. We endure, we adapt, we overcome, and when the stars turn hostile, we burn brighter. The stars fell in silence. It began with Kestrel 4, a quiet colony on the edge of Zarn-claimed space. No defenses, no weapons, just farmers and hydrotechs, people who built homes in dust and dared to dream. At 0400 Terran Standard, every signal stopped. By 4:15, the orbiting satellite disintegrated. By 4:20, the planet was gone. Not bombed, not invaded, erased. Scans later revealed no radiation, no debris, only a perfect, spherical void where a world used to be. Like the universe had blinked and forgot it was ever there. Within 2 hours, 11 more colonies vanished. Children asleep in domes, scientists in mid-transmission, lovers walking through terror gardens. Gone. No warning, no survivors. The Zarn called it the Scorch. Their message followed hours later, broadcast in every known frequency, every dialect, every code. This was mercy. The galaxy froze. Even the ancient empires, the ones who had forgotten the taste of fear, watched and whispered. They expected humanity to fracture, to panic, to beg. But what followed wasn't mourning. It was motion. Across Terran space, lights came on in bunkers that hadn't opened in centuries, vaults unsealed, protocols long buried in black code archives flickered to life. Protocol Phoenix, an answer older than the stars we colonized. Shipyards once dormant now roared with fire. The forgotten AIs, the dangerous ones, locked away after the CERN collapse, were reactivated, not asked for permission. Deep beneath the ice crust of Thalor Prime, cryo bays opened. Sleeper soldiers, bred for extinction-level events, took their first breaths in over 100 years. Across every system, from the lush jungles of New Terra to the acid clouds of Helix 7, humanity prepared. They didn't weep. They didn't pause. They moved like one vast organism suddenly remembering what it was. We were not diplomats, not scientists, not explorers. We were survivors, and we were angry. In the war rooms of the Terran Union, maps shifted, not to defend, to strike, to reclaim, to retaliate. But Ayla, she didn't speak of vengeance. She spoke of clarity. The Zarn think we are afraid, she said, voice low, steady. They think we need time to understand. They're wrong. She stood before the High Assembly, every eye on her, every breath held. They scorched 12 worlds. We felt everyone. And now, her eyes narrowed. Now they will feel us. The room didn't cheer. It didn't erupt. It simply rose in silence. Every general, every leader, every voice that mattered. It was no longer war. It was inevitability. 3 days later, the expansion fleet tripled in size. 1,000 ships, from frigates to planet crackers, gathered at the edge of the nebula line. Their hulls gleamed black and silver, forged in gravity wells and quantum forges. Engines humming with dark matter drives, weapons no other species had dared to build, because they weren't insane enough to try. But humans, we never asked if we should. We asked when, and the answer was now. The Zarn watched, unmoved, their arrogance ancient, their pride built over eons. They had never lost. They had never been challenged. So when their seers peered into time and saw the shape of humanity's wrath, they didn't believe it. Not yet. Because to them, we were still children, loud, fragile, temporary. They didn't understand what we had become. Not yet. But they would, soon. Because when the expansion fleet lit their drives and crossed into Dominion space, they didn't send threats. They didn't announce their presence. They moved like a blade in the dark. They dismantled Zarn outposts before alarms could be raised. They slipped past defense lines with quantum shadows and silence fields. They rewrote the rules of engagement, of war, of reality. And on the bridge of the TSV Valiant, Ayla stood at the helm. Not smiling, not raging, resolved. "Do you hear it?" she whispered to her second in command. He frowned. "Hear what, ma'am?" She closed her eyes. The silence before a storm remembers how to scream, and scream it would. Because this wasn't revenge, it was reckoning, and humanity was just getting started. They called it Celeste Gate, a place where stars burned too bright, too close, wrapped in magnetic storms that tore lesser ships apart. No sane fleet would fight there. But Ayla chose it, not because it was safe, but because it was madness. The Zarn arrived first, glorious, infinite, terrifying. 10 million warforms, each a monument to alien perfection, towering constructs of light and crystal, humming with ancient energy. They moved in silent unison like a choir that had never known a wrong note. No fleet in history had stood against that many. Not the Sylvani in the Obsidian Uprising, not the Drakkari when they fell at Vex Hold, not even humanity yet. But Ayla didn't bring a wall to stop them. She brought a mirror. Terran ships erupted from the storm clouds like ghosts, silent, scattered, unpredictable. Their formations didn't follow any known doctrine. To the Zarn, it was chaos. But to Ayla, it was music. She had studied Zarn strategy for years. She knew their greatest strength wasn't power, it was predictability. Their perfection made them rigid, too perfect to bend, and she was about to break them. Engage shadow drives, Ayla commanded. Hundreds of ships shimmered and vanished. The Zarn adjusted. Their warforms unleashed planetary-class beams into the void. Space warped. Suns trembled, but they hit nothing, because humanity wasn't there to fight fair. The Valiant dove into the storm field, followed by Strikewing Omega. Inside the electrical maelstrom, no sensors worked. No targeting systems held. It was hell, and humans had trained for it. They flew by instinct, by feel, by rage, and one by one Zarn vessels began to disappear, each loss unregistered, each defeat impossible, because the Zarn didn't understand emotion. And that was the virus Ayla had unleashed. 2 weeks prior, her quantum hackers had injected an emotional logic matrix into a captured Zarn beacon. Just a whisper of human thought, fear, doubt, confusion. The Zarn neural net absorbed it instantly. They didn't know how to defend against a concept they didn't feel. Now, in the chaos of Celeste Gate, their shared mind, once pure, fractured. Warforms began hesitating. Conflicting orders clashed. Some ships turned on their own, blinded by simulated guilt. Others froze, unable to resolve paradoxical commands. Ayla watched the breakdown unfold with steel in her voice. Fire the Anthem, the TSV Anthem, a weapon so controversial it had been locked away under 10 layers of command protocol, came to life. It didn't launch missiles, it launched truth. A focused emotional pulse broadcast directly into the Zarn mind web. Not hatred, not aggression, grief. The grief of 12 lost colonies, of mothers searching for children in ash, of fathers digging through rubble with bare hands. It hit like a storm. The Zarn screamed, not in sound, but in light. Their forms flickered, spasmed, shattered under the weight of emotion they had never evolved to bear. And still humanity pressed forward. Frigates exploded, battleships cracked open. Both sides burned, but only one side broke. Ayla stood on the bridge, blood trailing from a cut over her brow. The Valiant shook with each impact. Report, she barked. Enemy fleet down to 60%. They're scattering. Scattering, the Zarn had never retreated in their history. And now they ran. Ayla stared at the collapsing armada, at the once unstoppable force now unraveling in fear. Open a wideband transmission. A pause, then a nod from her comms officer. She stepped forward, voice low, measured. To the Zarn Dominion, silence. You thought we would kneel. She took a breath. You were wrong. Another breath. You thought we would mourn quietly. Her fists clenched. You were wrong. Her voice hardened, cold steel wrapped in flame. You thought we were just another species, soft, temporary, forgettable. Then came the wrong. Across every channel, every frequency, the words rang like thunder. Ayla's face appeared on 1,000 alien worlds, her eyes burning with human defiance. We are not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most advanced, but we endure, we adapt, and when we bleed, she leaned closer. We learn. The Zarn ships flickered one final time and vanished into the storm. Gone, beaten, not by superior firepower, but by a truth they could never grasp. Humanity doesn't win by being perfect. We win by refusing to lose. The Zarn Dominion fell without a final battle. No last stand, no dramatic counterstrike, just collapse. Their war forms, once flawless instruments of destruction, began to shatter from within. Not from weapons, but from doubt, from cracks in their perfect unity. Whole fleets ghosted out of existence. Cities of crystal dimmed and crumbled, unable to maintain cohesion. Their mind network, once a chorus of harmony, now echoed with confusion, contradiction, fear. And fear was something new. To them, it was a disease. To us, it was fuel. Within 5 years, the Dominion's core worlds were empty, not conquered, not occupied, just abandoned. Their archives left open, their weapons untouched, their monuments to eternity left standing in silence, staring at nothing. Humanity didn't celebrate. There were no parades, no banners waving in the stars, just a quiet understanding. It was over. Ayla Saren stood on the surface of Zarn home, their ancient capital. The ground beneath her boots pulsed faintly with residual energy. Blue light moved like veins through obsidian stone. Once it would have incinerated her on contact. Now it trembled beneath her presence. Around her, the command team spread out, scanning, recording, watching the dead empire breathe its last. No traps, no resistance, only silence and memory. She walked alone toward the central structure, a spire of translucent crystal that reached for a sky forever dimmed. Wind whispered through broken arches. Not a soul remained. Inside, at the core of the spire, she found it. A single sphere hovering in midair, alive, flickering, watching. She knew what it was, the last of the Zarn overseers. Not a leader, not a general, a witness. Its form shimmered, struggling to stay coherent. When it spoke, it didn't use sound. The words arrived in her mind like drops of cold water. You were not supposed to win. Ayla didn't flinch. You erased our worlds. Because you were spreading beyond reason. You called it mercy. It was. She stepped closer. We offered peace. You gave us silence. You are chaos, unpredictable, dangerous. You're right. The sphere flickered. You were a mistake. No, she said, voice low, steady. We're a warning. The overseer's light pulsed once, then faded. Gone. Ayla stood there for a long time. Not in triumph, not in grief, in reflection. Outside the spire, the team received the signal. The mission was complete. When she returned to the Valiant, the crew didn't cheer. They stood, hands behind backs, heads high. The bridge was quiet. She looked to the stars, thousands of them scattered across the void. So many still untouched. A junior officer broke the silence. Did we win? She didn't answer at first. Then she turned, her voice just above a whisper. No, we survived. That word echoed deeper than victory, because survival meant cost, sacrifice. 12 colonies still gone, millions of voices still silenced. But from their silence came strength. Across the Terran Union, new beacons were lit, not for conquest, not for vengeance, for remembrance. Children were taught the names of lost worlds. Pilgrims traveled to the edge of scorched systems to plant memory stones. And on every new colony, a simple phrase was etched above the gates. We are the children of fire. We do not forget. The galaxy watched, listening now. They no longer called us primitive. They didn't dare call us weak. They called us the species that doesn't stop. Empires that had mocked humanity now requested alliances. Species that had once enslaved humans now offered reparations. But Ayla knew the truth. It wasn't fear that moved them. It was respect, earned not through power, but through pain, through choosing to rise when the universe said, stay down. She gave one final address from the deck of the Valiant, broadcast to every human world, every listening ear. We didn't ask for war, but when it came, we remembered who we are. Not perfect, not pure, but persistent. We bleed, we burn, and still we build. She paused, her voice quiet now, but unshakable. They thought we were fragile. She looked into the camera, into the soul of every watcher. They forgot, fragile things break sharpest. And then she turned away, leaving the stars behind her, because humanity does not linger. We move forward. We expand. And when history asks what we became, let it be known, we were not made to conquer the stars, we were made to become them.